look down and my little robot says, "See ya." Anyway, good afternoon, morning, evening or night, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to, what is this? I don't know, but I'm going to press play, so this is going in the background. Memories. Ooh, meta. We're getting meta over here. I guess people who are listening right now have no idea what I'm talking about, but good afternoon, morning, evening or night, ladies and gentlemen. This is All Alone and Sad and Cold, episode 1, the new Jar Media Expanded Universe franchise series of podcasts. This wasn't planned to do solo, as just like in the video that's being projected onto the wall for you right now that audio listeners cannot see, but I'm describing, can see, is the case. I'm alone. No Jim. And he's a loyal soldier, normally, so unfortunately it's normally got to be something pretty serious to make him not here, and it's nothing too serious, but he's got some kind of stomach thing that is just making the last 3 or 4 days kind of a continuous misery for him, so hopefully that clears up in the next few days and won't continue to be a problem, but send your best wishes to him and his poor tummy. Before we get too deep into the show, let me shout out the patrons over the Jar Media Patreon that make all sorts of things possible, including the audio versions of the show. But that's not all. If you're a Dibby tier or above, you get your crazy, wacky, insane Patreon names read out in the first or second week of each month. So get that in before the new month. Oh my god, another month is already nearly past, and here we are, another ep. And yep, there's more, I guess, on the Patreon too. There's the Jar Media Patreon group chat where all sorts of crazy conversations are had, and I'll pop in there every week to ask or get more relevant suggestions for episodes and things we might be talking about, things that might slip the mind that could be relevant and interesting. That's a good perk over there too. And also, After Hours is a quick little 10 to 15 minute additive, a little extra pill, a cherry on top, let's say, each week of the Jarcast, where it's we've been describing it as the 10 to 15 minutes we need to get out of our system before we record proper, the sort of warm-up, as it were. So there's a few episodes of that over on the Jar Media Patreon as well. Right. I'm always happy when that section's out the way. It has to be done. You have to talk about yourself in some form. But it's nice to be over with so we can get into the real meat and taters. I love meat, I love taters, but I don't like being alone and sad. Yeah, it's weird being alone. I've only done this, I want to say 2 times, so maybe this is the only other time. This being the projection on the wall I'm referencing to me from, I think it was about 3 years ago, the last time I did a solo episode, and went for about 50 minutes. Let's see if we can beat that this time. I think we can. I've got plenty to talk about, that's for sure. This is almost, if not for Jim's poor health side of it, worked out as far as playing catch-up for last episode. We just kind of pressed record and went for an hour and a half, and we're like, man, we didn't really get to any questions, so maybe this week we could do a catch-up, and that was the plan anyway, so I'm already kind of going against that with my rambling, but you know what? Let's just do a quick housekeeping. I've only got 2 things to talk about here. This is the section where we head over to the comment section from the last episode and see if there's just anything we need to address or wrap up. Maniac left a comment with a timecode saying, how the did Alex make that sound so accurately? If I was an audio listener, I would have sworn he did a whippet for real. So yeah, I was talking about the noise of laughing gas or NOS canisters that people like to use and abuse. And yeah, at that timecode, which is 4307 in the last episode, I do like a vocal impression of it. That was crap in comparison. Like the moment's gone. It had to be in that moment, and it sounds like I edited it in or something. It sounds so clear, so crisp. So shout out to me for that. I'm just so sick and awesome for that. And oh god, This one comes actually from the Jar Media Patreon group chat from JC Jingles, says Jars and Bells. This is disgusting. Just a little warning for you. Have the bears heard of the newer trend in gooning, so-called flicker gooning, which seems to be some sort of goon Super Saiyan state, with 7 seconds being comparable to around 8 hours of regular gooning? I'll say that again. 7 seconds comparable to around 8 hours of regular gooning. People say it's about flicking the tip of your Johnson whilst regular gooning, which activates your genital chakra with all of your other chakras powering it up. What do you think of the psychological concerns for this? Because since the time spent engaging with pornography is so small, the psychological effects may be limited compared to huge extended goon sessions people seem to have nowadays. Well, I think that is what it seems to indicate to me. It's just, I don't know. Something happened around 2020 and a lot of people were forced inside, and internet consumption and porn consumption went up a hell of a lot. It's kind of created a new community, new subsect of humans, the gooners. So then it only makes sense for the gooners to have sub-gooners. It's getting competitive in the gooning scene. I don't like to say it, but it's true. It is getting competitive, so now the gooners are at war with the subsect of flicker gooners, who they're just taking it to the next level of obscenity, of hedonism. You know, 1 minute it's flicking, what's it going to be next? You know? Itching? I'm scared to say other words that fit into these categories, because I dare say this gooning business has gone too far. And I would like to add in a sound effect to make sure the seriousness of that claim is addressed. I repeat, I think it's safe to say gooning has gone too far this time. And with that being said, let's start the string of questions and answers here from the community. These are largely from the suggestion thread over on the Jar Media subreddit, so head over there, where normally in the second half of each episode we address some of the questions from the community. But let's go in and just try and play catch up here. I want to get through all of these if I can. As some of the more serious Jarlings know, I kind of obsessively store all these comments just in case of a rainy day, or if the internet went out and we needed to record 100 Jarcasts, we probably could do that with the amount of stored unused comments I have here, but let's try and get through these and actually catch up here, shall we? Typical Laugh 3593 can get us going here. Add images to comments right fucking now. I don't know if he means comments on YouTube, which I don't think is a feature, or if he means on the subreddit. If so, tell me how and I'll do it, 'cause otherwise I don't know what you're talking about. Hog Size says this: horticulturalist Jarling here. Alex's enthusiasm for plants and propagation made me very happy. Since Alex tends to like freaky primordial species of all kinds, I'd love to hear his thoughts on carnivorous plants. I've personally been growing and propagating them in my garden, and I'm now pushing 25 of various species and varieties. Don't get into plants. Your home will be overrun before you even notice. I understand what you're saying there with the don't warning, because it feels like a very quick escalation in plant dominance in my household, where early 20s, I had 1 or 2 plants. I guess that's where Dur plant came from. That was like my one plant. I think it's died now, actually. I couldn't even keep that alive, and I wasn't really into plants at all, but in the last few years, something's just clicked in my mind. I've got my compost going, I've got my propagation going, giving plants away. It's a whole ecosystem that's going, and I've got a vision in my mind if I want as many blank walls to be covered with ivy. Because I like it. It feels like the air's cleaner. It's a nice contrast against whatever I painted the walls. It's just nice to be around plants, and it's kind of like a modern aesthetic as well. A lot of coffee shops and modern shops will do that now, where it's like the stripped back minimalist look with like plants everywhere. It's quite nice. It's quite peaceful. But yeah, carnivorous plants though. I can't say I'm very interested myself. I'd be curious to know where you live. I don't know if it's easier to grow them in kind of warmer climates, whereas we're somewhat limited in the UK with a unpredictable, flat atmosphere. God, whatever can grow in like overcast boringness is great here. But I've always struggled, at least growing up, keeping my carnivorous plants alive, and also now as an adult, thinking about the concept's just kind of too creepy and disturbing. I don't know if I really want to be around them, you know? It's the same conundrum I have with dragonflies, knowing that, like, man, if you just size this up, you're so creepy. You know, the idea of a giant Venus flytrap is disturbing, is nasty. I can't be getting down with plants that eat meat, you know? So directly, too, having the, like, mouths, even though they're plants. Don't like it. That's too far for me. I'm glad you got your collection going, I respect that, but I'll stick to the ivy and the stuff that doesn't freak me out, or I've got to feed, like, bugs. Miniature Ranny is mad at a quote I got for a curtain. 400 quid for a bloody curtain. That's bloody well. Robbery bloody. So yeah, I mentioned that one of the final aspects of this new set that I want to get done is I've got a big curtain pole up there. I just want it's like a 4-meter surface area that needs to be covered with a curtain. And yeah, I've only got the one quote so far for £400, and yeah, that does seem high, but it's also like a huge amount of fabric. I don't know. Maybe I'll find a better deal somewhere else. Poo-poo-wee-wee says, can we please have a Alex Lego update? Any favorite sets? White whale sets? Wish list? New Lego videos? Probably not on the videos. I've sold a lot of it, to be honest, especially the Star Wars stuff. I'm just so, I don't know. I don't really get like a flutter in my heart when I think about it, like I did growing up or in my early 20s. I can still like those old movies or whatever, but I don't need the models taking up space. I've got a handful left. I've still got like a sandcrawler. I've still got that giant Millennium Falcon. That's downstairs. I've just kind of shrunk it down and focused on the Lord of the Rings stuff, and even then, I didn't buy the new one, the Eye Tower, which is a cool set. It's just super expensive, and it's the space it takes up too. It's too big. I don't know where to put it. So yeah, I don't know. I like it. I like looking at the sets. I watch like Just Do Good videos on updates of what's coming out. I did buy that Dune Ornithopter set. That was well made. That was a good build. I've got a bunch of unbuilt sets I should probably just sell or build or do something with. I've had this real urge to buy this. It's called like Fort Legorado or something. It's an old Cowboys set from the early 2000s. It's a really cool design. Classic design. I always wanted it as a kid, even without even enjoying Cowboys that much as a kid, which is weird. It's just that good of a set and design. Keep thinking about it, kind of want it. It's pretty expensive. It would be about as expensive as buying that new Lord of the Rings set. But yeah, it's hard to justify just dropping that amount on stuff like that when you really don't need to. I'd consider that my White Whale set though, probably. Every now and again I'll look at Bricklink and just look at the listings and go, should I do it? Should I just pull the trigger and get this thing? Because I really want this thing, and it's only going to get more expensive the more time that passes. Yeah, I don't know. But man, Lego's so expensive now. God damn, is it expensive. Before the hike it was expensive, and now it's crazy. Because I was enjoying this like cycle of building up kind of a collection, getting tired of it, selling it off, using the money from selling it to like build up a new collection, and just having this cycle, and then just keeping 5% each time or something. That's kind of fun to me, but it doesn't really work out with the way money works now, so Red Was Blue says this. I was in a similar boat to Jim, but I was hooked on Instagram Reels. This is, I guess, in reference to social media addiction. Jim's bad with Instagram Reels and, YouTube Shorts. I'm bad for, what am I worst on? I'd say I'm bad for YouTube Shorts, Twitter. Yeah, those are my worst ones, I'd say. What might help him is deleting and then pausing his watch history on YouTube. I found that way, it only recommends the most basic reels or ones posted by the channels that you're sub to. Might be worth a shot anyway. Bear lads. I didn't know that about watch history, actually, that it still shows you the ones posted by channels that you're actually sub to, but I guess I don't use shorts that often. If I want that format, I'll probably just go straight to TikTok if I'm being real. But it is bad. It is bad, and I was going to bring it up on the cast if Jim was here, but I'll save it till next week in proper. But my cousin from Australia has been around for the past week, and it's been fun talking to her about some of this kind of stuff, and she was kind of jabbing me about using Twitter, or I guess you say X now, and it's like, why do you use that? And I was finding it difficult to even justify, like, why. The only thing I could think of was, like, I guess it's the only social media that sits in my mind as, like, the public forum, or I don't know. It's always described as that. It's not really accurate or true, but it seems to be the only one that has that kind of perception of, like, this is the soapbox place where everyone has their discussion, and there's some sort of free speech underlying tenant here, even though it's doesn't really work in execution. But I've kind of just given in. You know, it's sad, but I'm just like, I'm just addicted. Just forget about it. Just cave in. You know, get mad from your just rage bait Twitter feed. I've got my Tim face reactions I can just quote tweet people with on my secret Twitter, so I'm good, and I get my weird kind of warped sick enjoyment from that. So I don't know what other people are getting from it. I ain't deleting them though. I'm not ready for that. It's kind of an all or nothing thing for me. So warning, this one is it's pretty gross. Bebo Baby says this. I have my own poo ex-boyfriend story. Here we go. Before I get to the interesting part, I need you to know that, at least for the beginning, for the most part, he was a seemingly normal, good-looking guy, and we dated for 2.5 years. So basically, when me and my ex started dating, he was obsessed with hearing me fart. He would even press on my stomach so I will fart. He loved his own smell, and would fart on my face many times. He was also obsessed with seeing me poo. He would come into the bathroom every time I needed to go. He would be offended and upset if I went to the bathroom without him. I couldn't even lock the door behind me because he always managed to unlock it. He also really liked it when I saw him poo, often taking a shit while I was brushing my teeth or calling me to the bathroom and then going. In his old job, he would often video call me while he was taking a shit. Sometimes sent me photos of his poo. The worst was when he took a shit before showering. He insisted we shower together because he wouldn't wipe. Just get in and clean it with his hands, water and soap. I hated it, but I couldn't really say anything because he would just become upset and accuse me of not loving him enough. All of this lasted through the whole time we were together. At some point it became my normal. I thought it was just a him thing, but I guess not after that story from a couple of episodes ago. Oh my god. If that's real and not a troll, it's kind of messed up. You know? Like, I guess be into whatever you're into, but you can't be guilting others for not getting on with it. That's intense. That's really intense. And it's weird, I was talking to someone the other day who kind of had a similar story along these lines of, it was a lady who had was describing a one-night stand they'd had with a man who kind of had an extreme, or at least specific, fetish, like this guy in this story, Bebo Bobby, just gave us, where this guy, once this lady had her clothes off, started sort of tapping on her, like on her stomach area, like lightly tapping on her. And it was kind of the only way for him to stay aroused was by tapping on random parts of her body. And he hadn't discussed this in any form before they started doing this, and she didn't really enjoy this, so she asked him to stop. And then he kind of lost his excitement, as it were, so they couldn't continue. So that seems like quite an affliction to me, if like the only way you could get off is something like this, let alone poo and other people pooing and FaceTiming poo, and that's a lot, and you shouldn't be shaming others for it, especially. At some point it became my normal. That's sad, for 2.5 years as well. I'm curious that in that time frame of 2.5 years, when did that come up first? You know? Was it just little hints at first? You know? Like you'd leave the door open to do a poop and act like it's nothing and kind of just escalate from there? This is intense, and I'm going to go to the next question now because I'm getting scared. I think that incense stick dried out my throat, made me start dying. Oh, it's the mid-break of the... Interesting. Okay. Grammy Jame, let's answer your damn question. Let's get into this. Hey guys, I'm not a psychologist, but a fellow nutter / stimmer here, explaining the Charlie urges. As mentioned in last suggestion thread, I have several names I find to be inherently funny, mostly for their commonality or seeming formality. For example, Samuel. The root Sam seems simple enough, but the Yule adds that aforementioned formality. I believe our longing for needless diluting of humour to generate something simple yet complex relies mostly on the intimate nature of only a select few people understanding it, makes things even funnier to know the majority wouldn't get it. To know you'd look stupid makes it funnier. I don't think it's so serious that it deserves the label vocal stimming, but if Alex was being genuine about the effect Charlie Osis has had on him, then I can relate. I often find myself incredibly embarrassed after just trying to have fun with my friends. There's a degree of escapism in just being stupid, or in the mental echo chamber with the yogs, I would often bah, among other things, to myself. I think it's also a product of modernity, obviously with meme culture and brain rot, and that, but I find that stuff generally distasteful. I wasn't really being serious when I was saying that the Charlie infection is ruining my life. Maybe like 5%. But this isn't a new thing to me. I'm just kind of used to this now. I'll just have a handful of things, or just phrases or words that I just find funny or am amused by, or like annoying people with for a month or two. That's normally how long they stick around, and then I just move on to the next thing. Kind of like farm them for dopamine, and then bye-bye. Or crush them down like a diamond, you know, keep adding pressure to the phrase until you get just something that sticks forever, like bear, or that's the only one. But yeah, the Charlie one, that's another one I guess that has stuck for a while. I do like that observation of this kind of pedantic, trolly idea of this humor that is only funny to you, and that is like part of what's funny about it. I feel like it's such a strange, specific sense of humor that only people that have that sense of humor will really understand or find funny. Generate something simple yet complex that relies mostly on the intimate nature of only a select few people understanding it. Yeah. And then I especially like when people write in with stories about how they've managed to get people who have no idea what jar even is to kind of repeat these words or phrases or things that subtly indicate their link. They're like a jarred dog whistle. Yeah, it's weird and kind of a quirk of language and communication that's fun to play around with. So many people are just too serious, you know? Like, some people carry themselves as if like everything's so crazy and important, and that their place in it is so important too. And it's like, why don't we just reel this back and chill out a little bit, you know? Laugh at the absurdity more. We need to acknowledge the absurdity. And there's no better way than buying a Tim sticker and putting it in your local club. Sven says this: pull the pork, peel the lime, chop the carrots another time, set the plates, seal their fates, prepare for a stunning taste. Beautiful poem there, Sven. Thank you for that. Absolutely love that. That's the kind of stuff we need. That's definitely the kind of stuff we need in this world. Whew. Mr. Blue Pumpkin says this: I asked this question a year and a bit ago, and it was for Alex. It was read out, but sadly Alex wasn't there to answer it. Despite Jim multiple repeatings of it to a seemingly void audience, other than James, of course, who called the game in question cringe. Nice one, James. Anyhow, I shall repeat my question as close to how I originally made it all this months ago. Is Alex interested in playing the hit video game Final Fantasy XVI since he's played 15 and 13? It is made by the devs who also made 14, which is one of the best live services out there, IMO. And does he show any interest in trying the remakes of 7? P.S. Are there any Jarlings that play Final Fantasy XIV, specifically on Europe Chaos servers, whatever that means? I kind of feel finished with Final Fantasy, if I'm being honest. I did play 15 and 13. And now when I reflect on it, I'm just kind of like, why did I do that? You know? Especially is this a hot 13, I have more positive memories over 13 than 15, honestly. It's crazy linear and storytelling's pretty bad, but there's some kind of memorable stuff about it. I love the music in there. It looked great for the time, whereas 15, all I'm thinking with that is this kind of floaty, not really satisfying gameplay where it's kind of action orientated and there's dodging and a riposte kind of mechanic, but it doesn't feel right and it's janky and this. Oh my god, I'm getting flashbacks now of that traversal mini game. Well, it wasn't. It was like a traversal dungeon to get like one of the best items in the game, and it just wasn't worth it. And god, do not like that game. I feel like they've really struggled modernizing Final Fantasy broadly, as far as like trying to capture that relevance that Final Fantasy VII kind of had, where it owned the scene at the time. I don't think it's ever really reached that again since then. Like these they still sell like 10 odd million copies or whatever, I think. Like Final Fantasy VII Remake and whatnot, but I don't know, I hear mixed things about them. I hear that they kind of butcher things about it, they change the story around, and some purists hate it, where other people say it's like amazingly done, and I'm just kind of like not that interested in what Square Enix is doing with that franchise nowadays. If the term live service didn't make me want to vomit in my mouth, I do actually trust that 14 is one of the better examples of it. It's all you ever hear about it at this point is, yeah, it had one of those crazy turnarounds where the game was a disaster and they kind of pulled themselves up by their bootstraps and basically redesigned and remade the entire game until it was good, and now it's one of the biggest MMOs of its ilk. It's often pulled up as an example of a great story in there, basically like a big, expansive, fancy Final Fantasy story that matches the other games and games of its ilk, and it's like in this MMO. You can still play all of the content. It's all in there. You have to like play through it in order to catch up to what's out now. So it's not like Destiny where you just can't play a lot of it. It's more so I just know I'd be so addicted to it. It's what one of these previous comments was saying, where it's like, I just don't need that. In my life right now, I don't need a game that requires more time. If anything, I'm more interested in games that are the opposite of that, where it's like 10 to 15 hours, or like a Sekiro kind of length of game. That's more what I'm looking for right now. But I do find Final Fantasy XIV in particular to be interesting. I'll read about that now and again, or just see what the community of the game thinks about it, because I find it interesting. 16 though, seeing the kind of Game of Thrones references, and I don't know, it doesn't really. Again, I feel like they struggle to modernize it, and the gameplay doesn't seem to have too much of a hook there for me. It's not tantalizing enough to draw me in anyway. I screenshot a few here that are more kind of on the serious stuff, kind of on the Mr. Beast / riots and misinformation online and all these kind of things we've been talking about lately. Let's just see how this goes. Jade's Trouble says this. In relation to the Mr. Beast / UK riots discussion, one thing I really hate about the modern internet is how dehumanizing it is. When everyone on the internet is cultivating a brand, intentionally or not, it's hard to see these people as humans and to feel empathy for them. The far right is able to exploit this fundamental flaw for culture wars in the way that it's basically impossible for left-wing ideology, which requires empathy and viewing people as people. I agree with that. I think that the enshittification of websites is a major factor in this. Most sites, before they are enshitted, are seen as revolutionary and allow people to interact with each other and feel the humanity within them. But as soon as they become popular, they lose that humanizing aspect, and people are known for their things and gimmicks. First it was Facebook, then Twitter, then TikTok. I honestly don't think most people realize this has happened. I only snapped out of it after watching a YouTube video about Freemasons, where someone found a non-private Facebook group of members, and it was full of them making clip art comics to each other and having fun. It made me realize that you never see something that raw and unfiltered on the modern internet, and the more people cultivate an image, the less human they feel and the less empathy they receive. Do you boys feel there's an off-ramp to this? Like, what do we need to do as a society to help humanize each other, especially in the age of the internet? Because I think that is honestly the only way to get away from this fascist scapegoating. By helping people see that minorities are like them, human and deserving empathy and respect. You remove the ability to turn them into a boogeyman. Yeah, I think you're largely right on the money there, with dehumanizing and kind of petty differences that are easy to drum up hate around, are often used as ways to distract us, keep us angry at each other. I was trying to think of, like, how do you actually solve this, though? Like, I keep referring to this as Pandora's box. We've just opened this boundless communication where everyone is clashing. It's easy to spread fake ideas that actually get traction and have real-world consequences. So what do you do about that? And honestly, the only thing I can really think of right now as a solution, with things like heavy legislation or ways of reeling back the way we integrate social media into our world so carelessly, so thoughtlessly, without even considering the repercussions until decades later, when it's too late. We don't even know, like, what this is really doing to our brains, basically. We're like rewiring our brains to have a codependence on machines made by like mega corporations, and that's just the reality we're living in, and it's crazy. And it's important to understand what it's capable of for both the good and bad reasons, and we're experiencing the consequences of both. It is great being able to communicate and spread ideas, but that it doesn't compensate for like bad actors and people that are using this power for very bad things. And you can't trust moneyed interests that are only motivated by numbers going up, and not really interested in the morality of whipping people into a rage and algorithms that prioritize engagement, which prioritizes anger content, which prioritizes, it's never ending, like that feeling. And the only way I can see out of it is us inventing our way out of it, or technology getting to such a level where it puts us all at the same level. So what I mean by that, if we could somehow, if every human could communicate without the need of language, if we could like read each other's thoughts, or if we existed in some kind of if like hypothetically we did have like a brain chip and we could all talk through some digital landscape that didn't require understanding English or Japanese or Russian or whatever, and you could just communicate, and took out that barrier, that might instigate radical change. I don't know. It will do something. But it's the only way I can think of, like, the only way for us to truly understand how similar we are is for us to basically assimilate through technology, which we're basically doing anyway, and we're experiencing these weird growing pains of everything like combining. Yeah, it's pretty insane to watch and be a part of. If we're on this note anyway, I'll go into this one from the Said. Just another comment on your bit on the riots, and I want to quickly preface that I'm not trying to insult you by saying this, but I think you fall into the liberal, and I say this as someone on the left, not the right, trap of seeing Labour as the left and the Conservatives as the right. As someone that's follows Starmer's election campaign closely and has been paying attention to the government in waiting for years, they've constantly been legitimising far-right grievances, saying they will clamp down harder on benefit cheats, that the Conservatives are too liberal when it comes to deporting illegal immigrants. Starmer was constantly doing interviews and panels with The Sun, saying that Labour will be the party of hard borders, and if you want less immigrants, to vote Labour. It's impossible to deny that Farage, Tommy Robinson, the Conservative Party, etc. have been the main aggravators for this stuff, but Starmer, much like Macron in France, has been playing into this for his own political benefit. It was clear from the get-go that Labour's tactics in the 2024 election were to basically achieve a Pyrrhic? How do you say that? Pyrrhic victory? I know what it means, but I don't know how to say it. Move to the right and swallow up the sensible conservative ground, and then riling up the far-right concerns so those voters splinter off elsewhere. And they did, right into the Reform Party, which now has the third biggest voting base in the country. Sorry if this is a long-winded and confusing comment, but I hope it provides a little bit of nuance to what you were saying before. I understand why you might assume that of me, with the kind of left-right way every conversation winds up being framed, but it's also, I guess ironically, what I was criticizing in that very conversation that you're replying to in this, that being everyone talking past each other and not really hearing what the other's saying. And yeah, I don't think Labour are like a left-wing party, really. I think they're basically what the Conservatives were like 15 years ago, with a bit more like social progressive stuff thrown in. I think I've even joked about that before on the cast, and I'm often joking about how absurd I think it is that the way people frame Labour as if they're like communists, when the reality is they have very little left-leaning actual policy in place. It's very... But this is one of the things that it feels like a huge disconnect with reality and online. It's like people have this idea that the UK is this socialist, communist hellhole that's like right on the border of becoming like Soviet Russia or something. And it's like, don't forget like the reality we're living in here. This is a very capitalistic, materialistic country here. And most people are kind of conservative leaning. We're quite socially progressive, but outside of that, we're quite a conservative country. So people forget that they get lost in their little bubbles or their echo chambers and forget broadly like what the attitudes of the country are. It's easy to get idealistic, I guess. Or if in your small little bubble you are like if you only ever talk to radicals with radical ideas, you're gonna think that maybe more people agree with that when it doesn't always reflect what's going on. TopMinger C has another one on this topic. Long post and not exactly a question, but I just want to write in about your boys' segment on the UK riots. I know it's obviously not something Jar is used to talking about. The last time I can remember a discussion like this was during the Christchurch shooting in NZ, but I'm really glad you guys talked about it. Alex's description of being heartbroken and crestfallen really resonated with me because that's exactly how the spectacle of horror made me feel. Like half the country has succumbed to a collective insanity, and that feeling, the Pandora's box, just suddenly opened. I also agree with Alex's point that he alluded to, of this essentially being a form of class war. Farage is a former day trader and multi-millionaire who's positioned himself as a down-to-earth regular bloke, but whose whole career is pitting the working and middle classes against each other. Amazing point. So many politicians and people in power do this, and it works so well. It's like maddening to that group of people that can see through it, and it seems so obvious too. The fact that works is so blackpilling. But I was utterly despondent to hear from friends from ethnic minority backgrounds who said they were afraid to leave the house on account of fearing they'd be attacked by fascists. Without revealing their location, I went to a counter-protest to show solidarity, and while facing down the far right was very scary and disheartening. We saw people repeatedly doing Hitler salutes, and several people on our side had bottles thrown and smashed against their heads. It was warming to see so many people from so many communities uniting against this racism. While it's a despairing situation, it makes me still hold hope, particularly seeing the huge anti-fascist demonstrations in London and Brighton. I guessed around this long-ass comment off. You boys have half joked about how rightward this country has become, but this stuff has really hammered home the reality of it. Beyond the internet nonsense and political theatre, this sort of politics is really dangerous, and it's sort of a watershed moment in terms of its direct impact. It's gone from being abstract insanity to real-world violence. Robinson, Farage, Musk, etc. all bear direct responsibility for this, beyond the people committing the violence themselves, of course. I think we're seeing the contact point between online disinformation and nationalist zealotry and the real world. I just hope, as a country, this changes sooner rather than later. I encourage anyone listening to show love and solidarity to their fellow human beings and to never give in to despair, even in times such as these. P.S. Still occasionally shagging to the Posdact. Game on. Man, a long one, and I agree again with most of what you were saying there. I'm still kind of reeling from the fact that even happened a few weeks out of it, and out of the media circus now, from what I've seen anyway. But the fact it happened at all is disgusting. The fact we're here and nothing's changed as a result of it either. That's what it is so endlessly tiring about this, is that it just doesn't change. We all know, and I was talking about apathy in that episode, and it feels like that apathy always wins, you know? It's too much to ask of people, I guess. We're busy, everyone's living their own lives, it's hard to care. Especially when I got to grind extra hard so I can be a CEO, you know? I got to be a CEO, first and foremost. Doesn't matter who I fuck over. Hurt in the process, or underpay, or betray, or... You know, I gotta be a CEO, I gotta get a yacht, I gotta have it all. I need to have it all. Grammy Jame has another one. Speaking of Charlies, what are some other names you appreciate for their humour or stimmableness? Don't steal these, because me and my mate invented finding them funny. No, you didn't! No, you didn't. You cannot take that. Samuel. No. David. Paul. Can be. James. Yes. Graham. Yeah, that's a funny name. And that sort of thing. Remixes include, but are not limited to, Paula and Sama. Not names. No one is called that. Implying names that end in S are pluralized, and therefore neglecting to say the S at the end is quite funny. This is where James comes from. Also Bartholomew and Theodore. Food for name thought. Bartholomew is okay. Bit of a mouthful. Theo. It's just Alvin, isn't it? Alvin and the Chipmunks, that's one of them. Theodore, baby. Alvin and the Chipmunks, baby. Let's see if there are any more I need to get through here before we start wrapping up. I think I've gone longer than the previous solo episode, so I'm happy with that. I saw the projection start the recording over again, so that's bloody flash. Bjorno Pizza says, your shotgun bit reminded me of a story from my grandpa. When my dad was a kid, my grandpa heard a burglar in the middle of the night going through his house. Instead of calling the police, in true American fashion, he reached under his bed and grabbed his shotgun. He stood up and cocked it in the complete dark. Silence filled the air for a few seconds after, until he heard the burglar scramble out the front door and slam it behind him, never to be seen again. So yes, a shotgun does have a lot of aura. Thanks for the scary story. You know what? I think I'm going to cut it off there. My voice is just really suffering today. I got to record SAD tomorrow, so I don't want to push it. Thanks for sticking around for this one. I hope Jim's better, ready for next week. If not, I'm going to have to get a little bit freaky with it, which I don't know, you might like. Yeah. How many layers meta can we get? How many Deadpool layers can we go?
Oh, fuck nuggets. Deadpool 3 in cinemas now. $1 billion fuck nuggets.
That's my Ryan Reynolds impression, if you were confused. So thanks for watching, everybody. Good afternoon, good morning, good night. Leave comments in the suggestion thread. Check out the Patreon, all those perks. See you on the next Angry Joe show, baby. Let's have a bit of ASMR right at the end.
Hello. Want me to do a little burpee? Oops. Bit too sexual. Whoa, let's have a little bit of ASMR right now. Wow. Man, if only if I had one little crunchy chip to munch. What a crunch. Wow. Nice crunchy chip. Amazing crunch. Got any of that cream left? I love cream with the crunch. Give me more. Maybe that's enough. Damn.